Welcome to the Writer's Journey podcast. I'm Michael Laran, a science fiction and fantasy author on a journey to go from nobody to bestseller, and I'm documenting every step of the way. Tune in every week as I pull back the curtain on my writing life and how I'm building a writing career while working a full-time job, raising a family, and attending law school classes in the evenings. You can find show notes for this week's episode, a free starter library of my fiction, and much more at michaellaran.com. Hello and welcome to episode 97. 97 is a good number, and this is an especially important week for me because I finally did something that I've been saying that I wanted to do for a very, I'm going to stop being obnoxious. Something I said I'm going to do for a very long time because I've been complaining about it every single episode for at least the last, 3 or 4 months. And that is I bought a new laptop. So new year, new tax year. I finally dropped the money on a new MacBook Pro. I had been saving up for it for a very long time. So it was definitely a splurge item, but I am so happy that I got a new computer. Now, the funny part about this is that I'm actually recording this episode on my old computer. So it's like, well, Michael, you got a new computer. Why wouldn't you record the podcast on your new computer? Well, when I got the new computer, the last time I got a new Mac, there were so many new accessories and program updates and things that I had to get that kind of took me off guard, that the money that I budgeted for buying the computer, I didn't budget for all of the accessory upgrades. Because, Apple, I love Apple computers, but that's, I think, one of their downsides is that when you buy a new one, especially after a few years, you usually have to upgrade all your accessories. So I learned my lesson that time around. And I figured out, okay, what do I have today that I need to continue using in the future, and what are the different accessories that I need to buy? And so I bought all the accessories, and they were here before the computer came, and for the most part, I was spot on. I got all the right cables, all the right connectors, all the right adapters, all was good. There were only 2 things that I didn't think about that didn't quite work out. The first was my USB mouse. I've got a little Logitech mouse. For some reason, because it's an old USB type. The new MacBook Pros are USB-Cs, and this is a USB 2.0 mouse. It just doesn't like this little hub that I bought, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. And then the second thing that didn't quite work out that I wasn't planning for was my Blue Yeti. So my Blue Yeti is USB 2.0, and I thought that it would work with this hub that I bought, but it's not recognizing the Blue Yeti. So this is actually the last day I have this old computer. So I'm going to figure that out, and then I'm going to make a trip to Amazon. I thought I was going to maybe go to Best Buy or somewhere, but I'm going to make a trip to Amazon to figure out the best solution to create an adapter for this Blue Yeti. But I have no concerns that I won't be able to use it, but it's just I got to do some brain thinking on how I'm going to do it. So anyway, it's really cool to have a new computer, better display. I've got more than enough space on this computer now. That was one of my huge problems with the MacBook Air, and it's why I'll never buy another one, is that the last one I got, it was like 128 gigs, which is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And it's 128 gigs with the operating system. So really, it was like 100, maybe like 90 gigs, and then I never had enough space for anything, and so I stored everything on an external hard drive, but that was kind of a pain, and it had like 4 gigs of memory. It just wasn't very good at all. So I kept running into problems where I couldn't install certain programs, or things wouldn't run very well. It was just not a very good setup for me. So this one, it's got a lot more space, a lot more memory, enough to last me for a very, very long time. So yeah, I'm getting used to it. Like I said, it's nice to have a new computer. It does automatic backups a little bit better than my existing one, and I just don't have to worry about annoying pop-ups popping up every 10 seconds saying that I don't have enough space. I don't have enough memory. Honestly, I don't know how I ran this computer for so long without adequate memory or space. That's a very dangerous thing to do. So, but I made it work. So new computer, new times, and Plan on getting a new intro to the writer's journey recorded. Probably won't be anything fancy. It'll just be higher quality audio, all that good stuff. So in personal news, things are going good. I'm getting ready for class next week. It starts next Wednesday. And I'm taking copyright law. And I have not done a whole lot of studying in the past week or so just because I've been focused on other things. But it's the reality is starting to hit in that I've got to go back to class. And, I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, there's just so many other things that I want to do. And I'm definitely ready to move on. This is my last year, so a year from now, I will officially be done with this law degree, and so I'm very excited about that. And I did get my grade back, so I got the grade back for my class, and it was a B minus. So not quite what I was expecting. I was expecting maybe A minus, B, solid B territory maybe. But that's law school. That's how things go. I definitely learned a lot from the class. This was one class that I definitely got the most out of in terms of the content that I learned and the time that I got to spend in front of a lot of different attorneys. I just think that it was very helpful. And so I'm not in the least upset over that grade because certainly the amount of work that I put into it, as long as I passed, I don't really care. So yeah, B minus. And so that got me thinking about a report card in terms of what does all that mean? Because I think back about the last year and I think about my writing, I think about law school, I think about work. I was in a new job, learning how that was going to go. Writing, still doing my thing with the writing, podcasting, still doing my thing there. And, I think a B minus is pretty accurate in terms of, I think, my performance across the board last year. Like I said, I had a great year, but if I had the same year this year, I would be a little disappointed. And so I want to think about ways to have a better year this year. And I think one of the things that I think I could have done better in the writing life was focus a little bit more on marketing and advertising. I did well last year, but it was definitely in spite of not paying a whole lot of attention to marketing and advertising. So actually today, as I record this, I'm participating in Brian Cohen's Amazon Ads Marketing Challenge. I don't know very much about it. I just know that it's going to be a little bit more, it's going to be a hands-on event where you're going to focus on getting a profitable Amazon ad in 7 days. And I've got a few profitable Amazon ads. It's not like I don't have any, but, another one certainly wouldn't hurt. And going back and refreshing and cleaning the tablets off, or not clean the tablets, but clean slate. Clean slate will definitely be a good thing. So I'm going to be focusing on that. Another thing I wanted to talk about, just very briefly, because I don't want to put you to sleep, but over the past week, I've been focusing on taxes. So the last day of every year, New Year's Eve is usually when I spend time looking at taxes, getting all my documents together, because right about now in January is when you start getting your or whatever the tax documents are, 1099s. You start getting those in the mail and got to get the accountant on the phone and all that good stuff. So I've been focused on keeping pretty good records. So it doesn't take me very long at the end of the year to just do a final compilation of everything. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. But it's definitely a public service announcement that if you were writing last year and if you made any money last year, now is the time to start thinking about getting all your receipts together, getting all of your tax documents together. Making sure that if you're printing off your bank statements, all that good stuff. And if you don't have a formal process in place, I would definitely recommend getting one in place so that every time you make a purchase, you have some sort of an automated process that automatically saves what you're doing. So for some people, that could be QuickBooks. For some people, that just might mean being diligent. Anytime an email comes in with a receipt on something that you purchased, you make sure you're saving that to a Google Drive or a Dropbox or somewhere, and you're organizing your receipts based on name or date or whatever so that you can easily refer to those again. And for some of you, it might be that time of the year where you need to start thinking about your budget. All right, so that's something that I do every year is I figure out what my budget is for the year, and I aim to come in either at the budget or just below. I try never to go over the budget. That was certainly a problem the first couple years of my writing career. Now it's gotten a lot easier because I think that my costs are a lot more predictable. Like in my first year, there were so many things that I bought that I didn't know that I needed, right? Like domain protection or like I didn't know what the costs were for email marketing. Like I think I started off with a free MailChimp account and then that wasn't working because I didn't realize that you need autoresponders and the free MailChimp account doesn't have that. And so I didn't like the way that theirs works. So, okay, well, I got to go out and I got to go get a service that has autoresponders. And then you think about side loading and, you need things like BookFunnel to help readers sideload things onto the devices. And there's just so many things that you don't know that you need in the first couple of years of publishing that it's kind of hard to predict what your costs are going to be. But once you've been in business for a few years, you have a pretty good idea of what your annual costs are, what your monthly costs are. So if you haven't done that, just sit down and just figure out where your money's going. And that'll help you put together a pretty reasonable budget, I think. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of time this past week doing that and focusing on that and figuring out where the money's going to go this year. There's some things I'm going to have to invest in that I've already budgeted for that I was kind of prepared for last year, but like new microphone, that's something I'm going to do. I'm going to keep my Blue Yeti, but I'm going to end up going the traditional route. I'm going to put my big boy pants on and get an actual microphone. Not that the Blue Yeti's not an actual microphone, but I need something that's a little bit more high powered, especially because I'm going to start doing my own audiobooks. So there's some things that I'm going to have to invest in this year to improve myself and grow my YouTube channel and my business. And so I'm sure that there are some things that you probably need to be thinking about investing in. And that could be software. It could be equipment. It could be a course or something else that might help improve your craft or a certain knowledge gap that you might have. So I just encourage you that at the beginning of the year, this is a great month to do it because when you look back on, when you get to December and you look back on the year, January is often forgotten. That's my experience. And so try to load your January up with some things that are going to get your year off to a really good start. So that is my tip today. Do your taxes. Don't go the Wesley Snipes method of evading your taxes. that's a very easy way to get taken down as a writer. And make sure that you're thinking about your budget and the money and all that stuff that you're going to spend this year. I know it's not fun, but it's absolutely essential. And if you can stay on top of that, I think it will help position you for long-term success. So I promised that I would give you a therapy update. So I had my first therapy session last week, and it was the first one in a while. We had to do some back and forth rescheduling, and there were a few things that didn't work. And so we were chatting about personality quirks, right? So I was talking about how as a millennial, and I don't know if this is necessarily a millennial thing or if it's a Michael Laron thing, I don't know, but I have this thing where I feel like I always have to be winning. Like even if it's like minor and very small, like I'm very competitive. I'm not so much competitive against other people. I don't really care what other people are doing. Like if you look at what I'm doing and like on YouTube versus what other YouTubers are doing, like I don't really pay very much attention to any of that. But I do pay attention to myself, and I'm very competitive against myself. And so we were talking about that, and I just happened to mention about the B- and how, maybe 10 years ago I would have been a little bit more upset about that. I would have been like, oh, this is unacceptable. I'm a better student than this, and where did I go wrong? And now it doesn't really matter. Like I don't really care. Like I don't care to the point where I'm willing to talk about it in public and let the whole world know I got a B- in this class. That wouldn't have been me 10 years ago. And I look at all the different areas of my life, and there was one particular day I think where there was a project at work that kind of crashed and burned that I was working on. That was a little disheartening. The words weren't coming with cold hard magic, which I didn't give you an update on that. It's not going very well, but it's progressing. And then there was a few other things like at home, we had like 6 inches of snow, and I'd been taking care of my snowblower, and then lo and behold, it doesn't start. And there's just all these little things that were just like adding up, and I'm like, what's the message here? What's the message that the universe is trying to teach me? Because it felt like that one day, there's just nothing was kind of going my way. And so the therapist, we were talking about, how I'm that personality type, like I said, where I always have to be winning, and I have to learn how to sometimes step back and look at my life in the macro and the big picture. And sometimes no one's going to come to your house and shoot you because your snowblower didn't start, or those sorts of things. And so I think it's easy to forget. It's so easy to lose perspective. That's why I talk on my YouTube channel all the time about making sure that you have perspective. So this past week, I did a video on how to finish any story that you start. Because a very common question that I get from people is, well, I just have all these great story ideas, but I don't know which one to start, or I start this story, but then I get a few chapters in and I don't like it, so then I move on to something else, and I just feel like I can never get to a story that I can commit to. And my solution in that video was that often the reason that happens is because you don't have perspective, right? If it's your first novel and you've never written a novel before, it's going to feel really, really tough, right? And so stepping back and giving yourself perspective, I think, is important, and especially if you've never had it before. And that's why I think listening to someone who's done it before is definitely very helpful. So we were talking about that, and how I think I've gotten a lot better over the past few years of expressing gratitude and stepping back and giving myself perspective and not being so hard on myself. I was a lot harder on myself when I first started writing. My first year writing, I'm not selling any books on Amazon today. What am I doing wrong? All sorts of things. Those emotions that kind of go with your first year of publishing or your first book. I definitely was definitely not a stranger to those, and that's not lost on me, right? And so I think about that, and it's like I've come a long way in the past 5 or 6 years, right? Like, I don't even check my sales dashboard very often anymore, which my first year of publishing, I would check it like every 10 minutes, So yeah, just perspective and being able to take a deep breath and step back and look at what you've done and try to put context to what you're doing and not be so hard on yourself, right? And I think that's my message for you this week. Whatever it is that you're beating yourself up about this week, don't worry about it too much, because it's really not the end of the world. Like I said, no one's going to come to your house and shoot you over what you've done wrong or whatever. So yeah, that was my therapy update. We didn't talk about a whole lot this first week. We just kind of talked about the year in review, and I kind of talked about some of the things that I'd accomplished and some of the things that were maybe misses for me. We talked about some of the small wins because that's something that I believe very much in. And then we talked about kind of what my focuses were for this year. And I think my big focus for the year is just to maintain where I'm at. Right. So I'm producing Writer's Journey every week. I've got writing tip of the day. I've got author level up. I've got law school classes. I've got these insurance classes that I'm teaching. My focus is just to maintain, because I think a year from now, once law school's done, I'll have a little bit more time that I can kind of focus on doing other things. And so I'm looking forward to that. But at the same time, I'm just trying to maintain where I'm at. So anyway, that's all I got for this week. This is kind of a transitional week for me as I get my new computer all set up. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks for joining me this week. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy my backlist episodes at michaelaran.com/podcast. For your free starter library of my favorite novels, join my fan club by visiting michaelaran.com/fanclub. If you're a writer and want to connect with me further, check out my YouTube channel, Author Level Up, for helpful writing advice at authorlevelup.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.